You have to hand it to them. When they come up with a name for a bill, they really go for it. President Trump's latest legislative push is called the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. It sounds more like something you'd name a prize-winning pumpkin at a state fair than a serious piece of policy. But here we are, in the middle of a political drama that has Washington completely tied up in knots. This bill was supposed to be a crowning achievement, a signature policy that would set the stage for the next election. Instead, it's become a giant headache for the Republican Party, pitting members of the House against their colleagues in the Senate. It's the kind of family feud that makes for great television, but terrible governance. The whole mess started with a simple idea, at least on paper. The goal was to pass a single, sweeping piece of legislation that checked off all the major boxes on the conservative wish list. Think of it as a political all-you-can-eat buffet. Why pass a dozen small bills when you can cram everything into one enormous one? The White House pitched it as a bold, decisive move to tackle the nation's biggest issues all at once. The problem, as anyone who has ever tried to please everyone at a holiday dinner knows, is that the more items you add to the menu, the more likely it is that someone is going to hate the green bean casserole. And right now, a lot of Republicans are looking at this bill and wrinkling their noses. The bill's nickname is perhaps the most honest thing about it. It is certainly big. In fact, it's massive. The document itself is thousands of pages long, a legislative behemoth that touches almost every aspect of American life. It was designed to be beautiful in the eyes of its supporters, a perfect expression of their political philosophy. But its size and scope have made it incredibly vulnerable. Every line, every clause, and every dollar allocated has become a point of contention. The grand vision of a unified party marching in lockstep has dissolved into a chaotic scene of internal bickering and open revolt, particularly from House Republicans who feel their original version has been completely gutted. So now, what was meant to be a victory lap has turned into a frantic scramble. The bill that passed the House was one thing, but the version that has emerged from the Senate is a different beast entirely. The changes, particularly those affecting social programs and government spending, have set off alarm bells among a powerful group of House conservatives. They are now threatening to sink the entire enterprise, creating a standoff that could have major consequences for the party and the country. The One Big Beautiful Bill has become one big beautiful problem, and nobody seems to have a clear idea of how to solve it. It's a classic Washington story of ambition colliding with the messy reality of politics. At its core, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act is built on three main pillars. The first and most prominent is a massive extension of tax cuts. These cuts, which were first introduced in a previous administration, are set to expire soon. This bill would make them permanent, a long-held goal for many in the Republican Party. The idea is that lower taxes for corporations and individuals will stimulate the economy, encourage investment, and create jobs. For a typical family, this could mean a few extra $100 in their tax refund each year. For large corporations, it means saving billions, which supporters argue will be reinvested back into the American economy. The second pillar is a significant increase in funding for immigration enforcement and national defense. The bill allocates hundreds of billions of new dollars to hire more Border Patrol agents, build and reinforce physical barriers along the southern border, and invest in new surveillance technology. It also boosts the Pentagon's budget, funding new ships, planes, and advanced weaponry. This part of the bill is designed to appeal to the party's base, which has long prioritized a tougher stance on immigration and a stronger military. It's a clear statement of priorities, channeling a huge portion of federal resources towards security and enforcement. The third pillar is where things get really controversial. To offset the cost of the tax cuts and new spending, the bill proposes deep cuts to a wide range of social programs. This includes everything from food assistance for low-income families to federal funding for affordable housing and anti-poverty initiatives. The logic here is that the government has grown too large and that these programs are a drain on the national budget. Supporters argue that a strong economy, fueled by tax cuts, is the best social program. They believe that reducing dependency on government aid will encourage more people to enter the workforce, ultimately making everyone better off. For ordinary people, the impact of these changes would be felt in very different ways. A middle-class family might see a modest decrease in their tax bill, while also noticing more security presence in their communities. However, a low-income family that relies on food stamps or housing assistance could see their benefits drastically reduced or eliminated altogether. A senior citizen on a fixed income might find their access to certain social services curtailed. This combination of giving with one hand while taking away with the other is the central tension of the bill, creating a stark divide between those who stand to benefit and those who stand to lose. When the bill arrived in the Senate, it was clear that it wouldn't survive in its original form. The House had passed a version that was a conservative dream, full of deep spending cuts and bold policy changes. But the Senate is a more moderate body, and a handful of centrist Republicans were nervous about the political fallout of such drastic measures. So, the Senate leadership took out their scalpels and began to perform some major surgery on the bill. They knew they had to make changes to get the votes they needed, even if it meant angering their colleagues back in the House. It was a calculated risk, and one that has dramatically reshaped the legislation. The most significant change made by the Senate was to the proposed cuts to Medicaid. The House version of the bill included steep reductions in federal funding for the program, which provides health insurance to low-income Americans. This was a red line for several key Senate Republicans who represent states that had expanded Medicaid and feared a backlash from voters. So, the Senate version restores much of that funding. While it still includes some reforms to the program, it avoids the deep cuts that the House had championed. This move was essential for getting the bill through the Senate, but it also blew a massive hole in the budget calculations. To pay for the restored Medicaid funding, the Senate had to find savings elsewhere. They did this by scaling back some of the tax cuts and reducing the proposed increases in defense spending. Instead of making the tax cuts permanent, the Senate version extends them for only 10 years. This subtle change has enormous long-term budget implications. It also trims the Pentagon's budget request, a move that has not gone over well with defense hawks in the party. The Senate essentially traded some of the bill's most popular conservative provisions in order to protect Medicaid, a program that many in the party have long sought to dismantle. These alterations have fundamentally changed the character of the bill. The House version was a statement of pure conservative ideology: smaller government, lower taxes, and a powerful military. The Senate version is a product of political compromise. It's a more moderate, less ambitious piece of legislation that reflects the realities of a narrowly divided chamber. For example, a family that was expecting a permanent tax cut under the House bill would now only be guaranteed that relief for the next decade. A defense contractor expecting a major new contract might find it canceled. The Senate's changes have made the bill more politically palatable for some, but a betrayal for others. The reaction in the House to the Senate's changes has been nothing short of explosive. A powerful faction of conservative Republicans who celebrated the passage of their original bill now feel completely betrayed. They see the Senate's version as a watered-down, fiscally irresponsible compromise that abandons core conservative principles. Their main objection is the restoration of Medicaid funding, which they view as a continuation of big government spending. They argue that the Senate has caved to political pressure and missed a golden opportunity to enact meaningful entitlement reform. For them, a bill that doesn't slash spending isn't a bill worth passing. This group of House rebels is now threatening to vote against the revised bill when it comes back from the Senate, creating a high-stakes standoff. They believe that passing the Senate's version would be worse than passing nothing at all. They are demanding that the final bill more closely resemble their original vision, with deeper cuts to social programs and permanent tax relief. This has put House leadership in an incredibly difficult position. They need the votes of these conservatives to pass the bill, but they also know that the Senate will not accept the House's more extreme version. The party is effectively trapped between its ideological base and political reality. For the lawmakers involved, the stakes are incredibly high. For supporters, this bill represents the last best chance to enact their agenda before the political winds shift. They believe that extending tax cuts and boosting security are essential for the country's future prosperity and safety. They see the internal disagreement as a frustrating distraction that risks snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. They are urging their colleagues to look at the bigger picture and accept a compromise, arguing that a partial victory is better than a total loss. They feel that failing to pass anything would be a devastating blow to the party and its president. On the other hand, the rebels believe they are fighting for the soul of their party. They see this as a defining moment, a test of whether Republicans are truly committed to fiscal conservatism. They argue that compromising on core principles is a slippery slope that leads to bloated government and out-of-control debt. They are willing to risk the entire bill to make their point, believing that it is better to stand for something than to fall for anything. This fundamental disagreement over strategy and ideology has brought the one big beautiful bill to the brink of collapse, leaving the public to wonder if Washington can ever agree on anything at all.